Hi, good morning. So my topic, monetization of games in the advertising world. As you see, my name is like precariously on the cantilever there. When I was talking to a couple of people, one in the gaming industry and one actually the head of a major brand in innovation and digital media, they asked me, so what's your topic? And I told them, and they started laughing, and they said, what the hell are you going to talk about? So here we go. So for those that are maybe not so familiar with either gaming or advertising, because I saw from attendees that there are people outside those two industries. Those are some of the trends. Those are some of the trends that are going on. So, and I put them side by side with the way advertising was or still is, to some extent. So video games, traditional advertising. Now we're getting into more, the social game, the casual games, mobile games, and obviously all this driven by the various smartphones and tablets, and that obviously pushes advertising into the digital realm. Okay, so and within that, there's all kinds of various segments that are developing. So for somebody that's just coming in, they look at something like this and they're like, they turn white. Because actually, it's pretty confusing. And if you look at this, if you go back to, a few years back, the segmentation was pretty well done, okay? And then as time went on and as things evolved, a lot of the lines became very blurred. So ad exchanges or ad tech became ad exchanges, ad networks became exchanges or DSPs, and then there's the SSPs that came about. And within all this, there's another thing that came about, which is RTB. And RTB, real-time bidding, is basically a more efficient way of placing ads. So you're talking about placing billions of impressions a day. And so basically, it's like a trader on an exchange. And that trader has many clients, publisher, advertising agencies, now because they're working directly, whereas before it might have been ad networks. And basically it's making, and the other thing that has evolved within RTB is the fact that now there's better targeting. So they may place cookies on users, okay, obviously anonymous because you still need to respect privacy. And with that, they give better targeting, and it becomes much like the New York Stock Exchange, an auction place, okay? So whoever pays the highest gets the best placement for their inventory, etc. So there's a lot of things happening within the digital advertising area. So if you look at some of this, and I have my little cheat sheets here so I can remember things. So this is some of the landscape, and obviously, some of those companies were acquired, and the valuation that these companies were acquired at kind of tells you the importance that they have or that people are perceiving they're going to have in the near future. So a company like AdMeld, so that's an SSP, okay? So if you remember before, SSP. So SSP are basically the protector of the brands and advertisers. They help them target or find DSPs. They work with DSPs. So AdMeld was bought last year by Google, who's a big acquirer actually, for $400 million. And then you have MediaMath and let's see, on the next one, all the way on the right side, Data2. So those are DSPs. They haven't been acquired yet because DSPs is starting, okay? Although it's starting to represent 25% of the way ads are placed in the US, okay? In Asia, it's less than 1%, or it's about 1%, okay? So it's really ramping up pretty fast in the US. There's another one there, Buddy Media. Okay, so Buddy Media right next to that too. So that one is a new category, sort of. Social analytics of advertising. So that one was bought by Salesforce 2 months ago. $800 million, okay? And I'll skip. AdMob was one that was bought in '09, so that's one that targeted mobile, whereas the other one, not really mobile targeting. It was more the traditional web, desktop, etc. So AdMob was bought by Google in 2009 for $750 million. And 2 years before, they bought an ad exchange, which is DoubleClick, so Google again, for $3.1 billion. Okay. So, and now you have a new category that's basically becoming the new frontier, which is Adapt TV, which is video placement of in advertising. Okay, so that one hasn't been bought yet because people are still trying to figure that one out. And then same thing in in gaming. So you have all kinds of moniker, which I won't go through here. By the way, I'll put, there's a lot of slides here, so I'll put this on our website for people that are interested. Gaming, same thing. Although it's a bit clearer on gaming, but if you notice, there's one thing that's missing here. There is gamification, but there's nothing about serious games, okay? And maybe augmented reality and virtual environments, which is where we think, serious games should evolve to, and not just be games, but they need to you need to have the user experience in serious games, because serious games are not a form of entertainment. They're trying to solve a problem or get to at a solution, okay? So I'll skip on the numbers, industry at a glance, blah, blah, blah. I just want to get to what I think are the relevant part, and maybe, if you have any questions, you can yell them out. Okay, so putting ads in games. Nothing really new, okay? So let me see how many people my age around here. Oh, not much. Oh, there we go. There we go. So when we were young, we used to play pinball, and you had the Star Wars pinball machines, etc. Okay, so it's analogic, way of doing it. And for when Rocky came out in '75, you had pinball machines with Rocky. Basically it was KO and things like that. Okay, and then it moved in the '90s, with the first console games, etc. And one famous one was the Barcelona games. Okay, actually it's '92 Barcelona. I don't think it's '96. '96 I think was Atlanta. Well, anyway, during the Olympics in the '90s. So, advertising in games or around games has been around for a while, okay? But obviously it was very niche. So if you look at there's an association in the US which is non-profit, which is called IAB, which basically has developed a nomenclature around what constitutes advertising in games, etc. So there's around game environment ads. So those are the traditional displays, etc. Within game environment. So again, it's displays, maybe something popping up, or maybe when you're changing screen, something pops in, which is the immersive ads. And then you have the advert games. So very specific custom-made games for a specific brand or to highlight specific products. And those are some of the definitions, which, again, as I said, you can check on our website. So if we simplify this, there's basically advert games, okay, and in-game advertising. So I don't know if anybody played this game, but I played it. It's a very simple game, very simple. But it puts the point across for people that are within that inclination, you're shooting Patriot missiles and you're winning medals and things like that. So basically, it's conveying a certain information, a certain user experience about what it is to be a Marine or to be in the Army. And that's been a game that's been around for a long time, actually. I think over a decade, okay? I don't think it's been updated, because the way it looks, definitely hasn't been updated. But it does the trick, for what it tries to convey. And then, there's the in-game advertising. So what I was talking about before, loading screen ads, virtual billboards. So there's one game where there was an Obama, actually, thing that popped right here. So And actually, if you look at the current campaign in the US, for those that are interested, there's quite a heavy use of digital advertising, okay, in all its forms, actually. So, and I was at a conference 2 weeks ago in Silicon Valley, and actually on stage, the head of the Romney digital media campaign was there. So they have a person that's totally dedicated to digital media, you know, blogs, etc. So it's becoming a really important part of the political landscape. Okay, so is there a natural fit between advertising and games? I think that, you know, there is. Not I think there is. There is. Okay, I'm at a conference where there is. No, there is, but again, it's got to be within a certain context. Okay, you can't just, you know, plop down ads, which I'll give examples of that. Is it effective? Again, it can be effective within the right context, within the right game, something that lends itself to the brand or to a product, okay? Now, I told you I was talking with a friend of mine who's a head of a major brand, and we were looking at those numbers, the Nielsen numbers, and actually, he agrees with me that those numbers are highly suspicious, okay? Because if these were real numbers, 64%, purchase consideration increased by 41%, you would have billions of dollars pouring into digital media, if that were the case. So I think those are, you know, obviously you have to see where the information comes from. Nielsen Entertainment, which is a digital media unit of Nielsen. And, you know, they're trying to make people come into the digital media realm. There is, you know, there are good numbers at this maturity of the market for brand familiarity, brand recognition, some ad recall. And, you know, I think the purchase consideration is more in the 15 to 20% range, which, you know, this guy agreed with. Otherwise, as I said, you know, the billions pouring in. And, you know, the demographics are interesting. Obviously, you know, everybody knows this for a while, that, you know, females are making up a larger and larger part. Even in MMO games, especially MMO games, they have some social connotations to them, okay? And obviously, you know, tablets and smartphones are driving all this, which is nothing new to everybody. So in the way that you monetize games is basically, you know, either you have direct pay-to-play models, okay, or you have indirect way of monetizing, which is, you know, free-to-play model and then virtual goods and all kinds of different things, or maybe getting to a next level requires you to buy something or to accumulate credits, etc. So putting together games and ads, I mean, it's similar to traditional web advertising, but in a game, you can actually have very different ways of monetizing, so having more of a diversified revenue model. So that's true in certain regions, okay? And I'll talk about that in a few slides. So again, the metrics. So one thing that it's like, you know, advertising as a whole, not just for games, but one thing, it's very difficult, especially in the digital media world, to sort of the metrics that tell you, yeah, you know, your advertising campaign is really paying off. Very different than traditional, okay? So traditional, you go, you know, you have a TV program at a certain time, you know what the audience is, and that audience doesn't talk back. You know, you just push, okay? Digital media, you have the risk of, you know, people coming in that are not necessarily your target audience because it's very dynamic, okay? So, and that's one of the reasons, you know, in terms of brand protection. That's why some brands are still a bit leery about going into, or they want to be sure they have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted before they go in there, because it's kind of a moving landscape. So there's various ways of doing this. So hard-coded ads, so the ad is there, it keeps popping all the time, you know, nothing to do with the context, nothing to do with dynamics of the game, the way you play it, etc. Doesn't have that much impact, actually, when you talk to people. dynamic ads, those are much better, okay, because those pop in, depending on the way the game logic is, etc. They pop in at the opportune time, okay? Because what you want to do with those ads is basically have a user experience and the most impact as possible, okay? If it just pops in constantly, you know, after a while, you know, familiarity breeds contempt, right? After a while, you're like, get this thing off. So dynamic ads is a much better way of doing this in games. So the challenges. So again, what I was just talking about is, you know, having standardized metrics to recognize that you're actually making money out of this. Simplify the buying, selling process. So what I was talking about before, RTB, DSPs, SSPs, blah, 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 all those things are here to sort of simplify things, okay? And then there are other ways, dynamic, you know, advertising. And then improve the platform interoperability. So there's a gentleman over there that's looking at his computer, which is from Unity. Look up Patrick. We will talk about platform interoperability and the way you can develop games on one platform and move them over to another platform. So, and that's very important, especially for game developers and small studios, the small independent studios that want to have maximum exposure. You want to be able to put this on a number of platforms. Okay, so up to now, people haven't made that much money from advertising, you know, the developers, and you know, and some of them are sort of throwing the towel because, I mean, their thing is to develop games, is not to be advertising gurus or anything like that. But you know, if you look at this, what I was talking about before, just dropping ads that have no context. I mean, I want somebody to tell me what Intel and Nokia have to do with this game. Absolutely nothing, okay? And that's why there's no money, and that's why a CPM like this is probably $2, okay? On a video, within a context, $35. So, you know, brands, advertisers, publishers are ready to pay if there's a way to demonstrate a return on investment, it's within the right context, etc. Okay, just dropping ads obviously is not going to have the same impact, okay? So there was an article not too long ago about the way to do this in Asia is through, you know, to generate revenue for developers is through mobile ads. It's not going to be through virtual goods because, you know, the payment gateways are not developed or non, you know, basically not existent. Carrier billing is again very immature, etc. So mobile ads are the way to go, but because it's the sole revenue source here, as opposed to other parts of the world where, you know, that's one of the revenue source. Even if it becomes one of the main revenue source, there are other ones that sort of come in and reinforce this. In Asia, it's got to be more efficient, and you have to demonstrate that, you know, my game for you brand can make money. Because advertising is about what? It's about trying to make people do the act of buying, okay? It's bringing people to the act of buying, but it's also conveying information, okay? And I mean, there's another slide, I'll talk about this. So what's one way to do it, okay? One way to do it is to partner with a brand, okay? Early on in the development of a game, okay? It's not an advert game, okay? It's a regular game, but the brand is part of that development. You know, it's part of the game logic, the way you design it, etc. And when you talk to a couple of brands like we do, the big ones with the big advertising budgets, you know, they're like scratching their heads and they're going, you know, because it's something interesting for them. They just don't know, how do we work with these guys, you know, the 5-man studios and things like that. So there are various ways of doing it. But if you're part of the game design, when you're placing an ad, you know, it's in context. It's within the, you know, it makes sense. You know, you're doing a product placement, it makes sense. This summer, Unilever signed a big contract with the EA, okay, for One of them was Sims, and for one of their brand, which is Dove. Okay, but Sims, I mean, it's perfect for in-game advertising because it's it's about everyday life and things like that. But there are other games which are very specific, but can be geared towards certain brands, etc. And it doesn't have to be just brands; it can be services. You can do the same thing with services. Why can't you, in certain games have DBS, for example, or the Minister of Education having something in there where basically you do certain challenges, or you arrive at certain level, you get, I don't know, 1 hour free tuition somewhere. So it's not just about physical products, it can be about services. But again, it's the context, okay? So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's really cool because you could do a lot of things with this. You could place a product and maybe have a QR code, and all along the value chain have things that demonstrate to a brand, hey, this is really good. And advertising, is not just about making the money right away and getting people to make the act of buying. As I said before, it's also about information, brand building. So when you talk to some of the brands, they go, okay, should we use this as a loss leader? I think loss leader is a pretty strong word, okay? Because, as I said before, information is one of the things that advertising does, right? You're conveying information. So you could have a campaign that's built, there's several facets to it, okay? And maybe the first facet is brand building, okay? And then once you have the brand building and the brand recognition, then you go for the act of buying, or getting people to execute the act of buying. So the brand building recognition, maybe, you don't hear the money coming into the coffers, into the bank, but it's got value. There's value in brand building. There's value in brand recognition because it just brings people that much closer to eventually, if not buying, at least trying the product, okay? And therefore it has value. So it's not necessarily loss leader. Maybe for the CFO it's loss leader because, he looks at numbers. But for, marketing managers, brand managers, there's value in this, okay? So again, it's because it's still pretty new, although, you talk more and more to brands, they have more and more, there are people that are really savvy about what's going on out there, et cetera. They just internally, they have to push, okay? So, as I was saying before, this friend of mine, when I go see him, this guy's plugged in. I better have my A game. I can't talk trash because he'll just. So these guys are really plugged in. It's just internally, not everybody's plugged in, and there has to be convincing. And again, it has to be shown that this is going to make money. And maybe it's a bit the wrong metrics, but they equate that. Okay, so how does that compare with the way we do it in print and the way we do it on TV? It has nothing to do with it because. On TV, you're targeting, and on print, a pretty wide segment, whereas digitally, you can really narrow down on your targets. I wouldn't say you can individualize, but people are trying to move towards that, okay? Real-time localization, etc. So, I mean, there are ways to make money. Burger King makes money on some of their game. Maybe the purists don't like it because it looks crappy, but if it does the trick, who's the wiser, right? And then, so virtual goods, as I was saying before, it's a branding opportunity. So here it's about brand recognition, etc. Blueberries. Nobody knows about organic blueberries. Look at the numbers. Okay, brand awareness, 550%. You know how that translates into money further down the line? People will go to the supermarket and look for that. They'll look for that brand, okay? So maybe to the CFO, this is a loss leader because money pouring in, nothing came out yet. But actually, it's a great way of making money. It's a great way to advertise in games. Again, right context, right? Farmville, blueberries, hey, perfect. So it's about the user experience and putting the player in the right context so he's open to it. If in the Canadian, in the Farmville, you had something about Intel computer or Intel chips, I'm sure, the impact would be practically zero, okay, because there's no context. So virtual goods are definitely a branding opportunity. So Snoop Dogg sold $200,000. So that was a while back, and actually it was over, what it doesn't say, it was over a period of 2 years, okay? So it wasn't overnight. But it was in virtual, virtual world games, like WeWorld and things like that. And actually it was avatars and branded clothing and things like that. So there is, again, right context, right? It's all about the context and the user experience. So is there a winning formula? So I'll spare you this psychological mumbo jumbo, blah blah blah, the way white people play games, etc. Basically, I keep harping on the context, etc. But I think it's very important. I mean, because the way people consume things is, they have to be open to it. Okay, so I was talking before about things moving to real time. You have a phone, we can localize you, we know where you are, maybe we know what's around you, and then we push ads on you, okay? And if you're in that frame of mind, if you're in a mall, that means, for all intents and purposes, you're looking to buy something, right? So if I push certain, and because I may have a history on you, so things are moving that way, okay? They're not necessarily there yet. Maybe I know what you've purchased in the past. Maybe I know when you've been in that mall, this is what you've purchased. I can target ads to you that are specific. The probability that you're going to do the act of buying, it's obviously it's not 100%, but it's much better than just having somebody walk 2 miles away, away from the mall and shipping him an ad for a store in the mall. Okay, so again, it's there's a lot of ways of developing things. So this one is kind of I think it's a dangerous one actually. So Sony has filed a patent. I think a lot of people have seen this, where basically they will make ad compulsory. So, for example, on PS3, you're playing something, they're going to pop an ad on you, okay? And you cannot get rid of that ad unless you do something, okay? And maybe it's play a game or get to a level, or one of the things in the filing is, if let's say it's a McDonald's advert, you have to yell McDonald's, and that'll get the thing off the screen. So, I mean, I think those types of things are dangerous because, again, you're forcing people to do things, and, I think there'll be a backlash, but who knows? Look at Facebook. People are, clamoring about, infringing on privacy, blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, Zuckerberg announced we just reached 1 billion users. So, we'll see, but I think that at some point, there's got to be sort of a boundaries, and that's one of the things. Well, I'll talk about this later. So obviously, with things coming up and ramping up, there's always people coming in with the jargon so they can place themselves in the right context, etc. So one of the big things, native ads. What does native ad means? I have no idea. Okay. Basically, what they're saying is native ads is an ad that's what I'm talking about in a natural context appears. It's not intrusive. But that's the way advertising works anyway, right? It shouldn't be intrusive. You should feel like you're getting drawn in. What's native? There's nothing native about it. So obviously people, that's probably a computer expert or something, that native application, he figured, I'll make myself a name. And this is the article, so if you read it, you're going, but this is what advertising is about, okay? So you have to be careful with all this mumbo jumbo. So the philosophical issues. So obviously targeting, that's what we're talking about. Targeting it's very important, but again, the industry for all intents and purposes is mostly self-regulated. And if you look at there's something here called ERS, okay? Emotion recognition software. It does exist, okay? It does exist. And my brand friend tried it. And he says it's fantastic if you put all the privacy issue in the garbage. Otherwise, very dangerous. So I think, as time moves on, as, digital advertising becomes more targeted, whether it's in games or on more traditional digital media, there's going to have to be some sort of boundaries within which things can be self-regulated. Okay, because otherwise, you always have people that try to cross the line. And if enough people cross the line, then regulators step in and they really constrain things. So I think the better way is to have, basically to have boundaries, flexible enough within which there is self-regulation, okay? And those boundaries sort of act as the firewall to make sure that people don't go crazy, okay? Because again, I mean, there are lots of things that can be done with advertising to make people go towards the act of buying, to convey information, to build brands, to protect brands, etc., without people feeling that, shit, I don't have any, I'm being followed constantly, There's got to be some sort of cutoff where, because a brand affinity, okay, you want to align with the brand, you want to, have the brand affinity. If you feel that you're constantly being intruded upon, it has a negative impact, okay? You want a neutral to positive impact. You don't want anything to go into negative territory. And even young people that are, blogging here, there, if you look at some of the surveys, they're also conscious about privacy, And if you look at the way things have been going in the last few years on Facebook and all the other social sites, there's been less of a, I'm putting it all out there. Because people understand you can't put it all out there, you need to keep some for your offline life. You don't want Big Brother watching you, right? So that's it. I hope you found it interesting. It was more about, getting people to think and maybe talking about what the trends are out there more than anything else, more than a recipe or a formula for making money in games. But there is obviously ways to do this, okay? And it's all about in the games. It's having the right games. It's like anything else, TV, print, the right setup, the right context, and you'll be making money with adverts in games. Any questions? Did I miss my time? Well, I went over time.